The right presentation passes the right message, and the right message influences the right decision. However, in business, very often presentations are not as effective as they could be, and we come up with slides that do not really drive attention. Slides could foster a powerful experience, but at the same time they could foster a very poor experience for our audiences. As you guys might know, I do a lot of presentations for my events, but I also have a company that does design presentations for others, for corporates. Therefore, I see plenty of presentations on my desk every day. And I'm not kidding when I tell you that there are slides that are really awkward projected to these people in these audiences. You look at a slide like this, and I would ask you, how would that make you feel? How can we even come up with things like this? Why do slides like this exist in business? There are a few causes that are well known. For example, we fill our slides with too much text, we have too many colors. And in general, what happens is that we think more about the design than the experience itself. Presentation should be an overall experience. The slides should be a support for us to create this experience and drive attention where we need it at each and every moment in time. However, the complete lack of experience, often caused by too much text, too many colors, and maybe a wrong interaction with our presentation, results always in the same thing. We make them sleep. We lose them, guys. We lose them. And we have a keyword for that. We call it death by PowerPoint. We literally kill them with our PowerPoint, right? No, this is definitely not right. Attention drives decision. And decisions drive business. Therefore, our design must work. So I believe we should stop thinking about a design that is just embellishing our slides, and we should focus on a design that truly makes a difference. Design must work. But how does attention work? Because if we understand how attention works, well, then we can create an experience using our design that actually attracts attention instead of loses attention. Everything starts from a stimulus. If we look at the process from the stimulus to persuasion, there are a few steps that I want to explore with you. The first one is the stimulus. We know that people tend to forget most of what we tell them, but if there is one thing that they will always remember, is the way you make them feel. Do you guys know how much people remember out of a presentation? Not more than 10% of what you said. And don't tell me it's about the data, because I'm presenting too much data and therefore it's boring what I'm telling. It's about the experience. A presentation could be full of data, but if you communicate them through the right story, in the right way, creating the right experience, the message will get there. Let me give you an example. An annual report. An annual report could be the big PDF, boring PDF. Even though this might be nicely designed, it doesn't create such an amazing or memorable experience. It's different if you choose, for example, to present it. So this is an example in which this annual report was presented with an engaging presentation, and this is already creating a completely different experience and interaction with the audience. But there is one that I really love, and it's this one. This one comes from a company called Mailchimp. And what I love about this one is, if you think about it, scrolling horizontally, they are presenting exactly the same numbers that the other reports are presenting us. So we are talking about KPIs, annual performances. It's an annual report, right? So the data, technically speaking, are the same, of course, for a different company, but the experience is completely different because you have to scroll horizontally. You can navigate this design. Now, is the design the most beautiful you have ever seen? For sure, it's not necessarily the most beautiful. It is characterizing it's peculiar for sure. It's special as a design. But the good thing is that it's engaging you to scroll horizontally, to navigate this data up to the point in which you will have explored everything. It is the way we say at MLC Presentation Design Company, it is telling you a story. It is telling you a story, it's engaging you. So if I had to summarize these different experiences, what I would tell you is that, yeah, we do have presentations or support that are text heavy, as well as we do have them in a more essential version. But what truly makes experience, in my opinion, the difference, in my opinion, is the experience. So you might have something that it is text heavy, but it creates an engaging experience. Therefore, Mailchimp, it's a good practice, in my opinion. While you might have others that are more static, they are text heavy. So this is a much more complex experience to go through. I'm not saying that it doesn't work, it can't work, but for sure, in terms of engagement, it's lower and it requires much more cognitive power to be processed. And you know, when we talk about attention, people's attention is scarce. It's probably one of the scarcest resources we have as humankind. We know that there are studies, true or false, but for sure that our attention span is collapsing down below the one of the goldfish. We are distracted, guys. We do many things at the same time. We rush through our tasks. We never have time. I mean, if you think about it, what is the average deadline for your next presentation? Very likely it's gonna be yesterday. The next presentation is for yesterday, right? It's always, we never have time. Data are updated last minute. We rush to the meeting room and we need to update data last minute. Sometimes we even teach techniques on how to update presentations real time while talking. I mean, sometimes it gets crazy. And therefore, in this context, we shouldn't be surprised about the fact that people's attention must be earned, because attention is lower and lower the more we advance, especially with all these shortening of the contents, with this TikTokization of contents. We want everything, we want it immediately. We're not patient anymore. Our attention span is dropping, guys, and we need to deal with that, especially when we want to create a presentation, or maybe in a training. I was talking to a client a few days ago, and we were discussing about how to improve training presentations for the corporate academy. You understand, guys, training is even a more challenging, is a challenge experience because a trainer must talk for hours, right? When you have to talk for hours, well, then the presentation has to be engaging, has to create an experience that keeps the attention curve high for a long time. Let's make a quick experiment. Let's play a game together. Try to follow the white rabbit. I'm gonna shut up and run this experiment with you. Are you ready? Follow me on this. Right. What happened? You see, probably what happened was that your eyes did follow the bunny, because that design drives attention. And the cool thing is that if we use design the right way, well, then design can drive attention exactly where we want it to be. Design must work beyond beauty, because it drives attention, and attention is the second step of our process. We need to wonder where people look at each and every moment in time. If we are on stage, we're giving a presentation, they're probably looking at us, but then we flip our slides, they're gonna go to the screen. Now the question is, are they going to bounce back to us, or do we lose them because the presentation is too complex? If I show you this slide, very likely what happens is you get lost, because to understand what I'm saying and how this slide matches or integrates within the experience, right, you definitely need to read it. But if you read it, you're going to lose me. In general, what we teach in our Lean Presentation Design classes is if you want to keep attention high, you need to be able to integrate within the experience that you are creating for your audiences. How do you do that? Well, when you're speaking, you know that most of the attention is on you. But then what happens is that you flip a slide, so people are going to look at the slide. And now you need people to get the message, confirm what you just said visually, and come back to you. To do that, you need to anticipate your next slide. You cannot just wait for the next slide to come up and then turn back and read it, otherwise it won't work, because everybody in the room you included will be reading slides. So what you need to do instead is you need to anticipate the next coming slide, you anticipate the message, then you flip, people go check the slide, they confirm the message, come back to you. But to make this happen, you need to integrate with your presentation and always be one step ahead. How do you do that? Do you learn your presentation by heart? Not at all. That wouldn't be a recommendation I would give you, because under stress, in a situation in which you have to perform, likewise a presentation, well, you don't want to rely on your memory. Otherwise, you risk you go blackout. So what we do, we use the presenter view. The presenter view, this is a shortcut you might want to use, enables you, if you then extend your screen when you're presenting live, non-duplicate it, right, to show people the full slideshow while you see on your laptop the next coming slide. Eventually, you might even see the notes. If you're presenting online, this makes it even a bigger difference, because you can split 50-50 your screen, and you can have your Teams meeting so you can see people, and you can have your presenter view, and you can even jump from one slide to the other. Nobody will see that. That would be the best practice, the one that I use at events, the one I'm using when I'm recording. So this is the best way not to go blackout, to have full control of your room, and to always being able to keep the attention high. You do this, you already change, you're gonna step up, and you're gonna leave behind almost, I would say, 80% of the speakers out there. This is, however, a topic for another day, because I recorded a video on this topic, even a full guide. It changes the way we present. I do believe it makes a difference, but it's not the topic today. Today I need you to know that this is a technique that for us is a mantra. So we do use it, and we do use it a lot. Without that, I wouldn't even present. Where do people look? Where do people, where they pay attention? Where do they pay attention? There are 3 reading patterns in design, in user experience design, that we normally rely on. The first one is called the Gutenberg pattern. It means that people enter top left, because people read from left to right in our culture, and then they drop bottom right, and then they jump back to you. So they close the triangle of attention, and they jump back to you. This happens for non-substanding slides. If they are reading because you need them to read, maybe it's, for example, a repo, a deliverable that you're giving to them, well, they are going to go left to right, and then they're going to follow this path that will take the shape of a Z. That's why we call it Z pattern. There is another pattern called the F pattern. It happens in more complex layouts. I'm not going to enter too much into detail of this, but my curiosity is that it has been discovered by Nielsen research team while researching how people behave on the search engine result page of Google. And so the cool thing about this pattern, it teaches us that we read from left to right, and this is key because since we are trained to read horizontally, it's not recommendable to flip, to rotate text boxes and make people read from top down or bottom up. It doesn't work, okay? People read from left to right, keep that in mind. And another important key takeaways from this pattern is that we are natural skim readers. So this means that we like to skim the text and get the message as fast as possible, especially if somebody's talking to us, because we don't want to lose the attention. Therefore, if we create handles of attention, for example, with some bold, playing with the reading layers, but these are techniques of design that maybe we will talk about later. Anyway, creating handles of attention fosters skim reading, and this helps people to better understand and follow what you're saying. So sometimes people ask me, Maurizio, does it make the difference if I present virtually or if I present in person? Which one is more effective? People often believe that presenting live makes a difference, but I did some tests and I read some studies and I connected the dots. And I'm doing that in my researches recently. And what happens is if you analyze a situation like this, for example, when you give a speech on a stage, or then you compare it to situations like this in which you are giving, for example, a webinar, well, there is a distribution, a diverse distribution of tension, but in both cases something happens, and I think it's quite concerning in a way. So let me give you an idea. If you're presenting virtually, what happens is 60% of attention goes to the big screen, the slide, only 10% of attention goes to you. That's why I do often recommend to spotlight yourself, and if you can, even using streaming softwares like OBS can create a better canvas, so where you can put yourself next to the slide. This creates better attention. It's a bit more advanced. I created a guide on this as well, so I will link it in the comments. But if you're presenting in presence, well then you will only have 24% of attention on the slide and 60% on you. But guys, what's missing? What do these both mode have in common? That they are both missing some attention, a good percentage of it. In virtual, we're losing 30% of attention. In presence, up to 60%, so 30 to 60% of attention. We are losing it in both situations. That is why in the presentation design, we talk about designing the experience. Because if we design the right experience, we can lower the attention drop. But if we want to attract people's attention, we need to understand how people's attention really works. So you guys need to remember this. In general, our attention goes through 3 phases. We call it recognition, emotion, and analysis. Recognition happens immediately. So in a quarter of a second, you see the slide, you don't read, you don't understand, but you see that there are items of certain colors distributed in a certain way and aligned in another way in the space. It will take you a quarter of a second. Then emotion will trigger and you will feel something. If you see, for example, a chart that has a red bar or a red line that goes down, pointing down, you immediately feel something bad. And then you go into analysis because your brain needs to confirm what you perceived. So perception always eats your brain before analysis attention, but influences it. That is why it is crucial we create the right framework of perception so that we can influence the brain to then go and analyze exactly what we want it to look for. So let me give you an example. Imagine you are in a crowd and you spot me, right? Then you might feel emotions like, oh, I'm happy, I want to meet him, or no, I'm not happy because during the last webinar he didn't give me good tips about attention. I don't know, I'm joking, guys, but let's say you're happy, you want to come and say hello. Then you might be thinking in the third phase, okay, which topics can I take to trigger the conversation with Maurizio? What can we talk about? Do I have a question I want to ask? Okay, so these are the kind of things that might happen. Okay, so we go through these steps. Let me give you an example. If I showed you this chart, for example, in the recognition phase, you would immediately notice that there is something that catches your attention. It's red, there is an arrow pointing down. You don't read the numbers, in a quarter of a second you don't have time, but you immediately realize there is something wrong with it. Therefore, emotion triggers. And you immediately feel concerned about it. So now you go and read to understand what happened because you expect something bad. I mean, imagine if I was going to tell you this 2023 was going extremely well with stellar performances and there was no need for it to be read. You would be surprised, right? You see, design influences perception and makes the brain go and look for information exactly where we want it to look for. So beyond beauty, design must work because it influences the way we pay attention and comprehension. Now guys, you need to understand that we have a cognitive budget when we listen to presentations. And this cognitive budget must not be exceeded. If you exceed the cognitive budget of people, you lose their attention. There are three kind of loads that might consume this budget: the intrinsic load, extraneous load, and germane load. Intrinsic load means the material is too complex. Okay, of course, if you are attending, I don't know, an astrophysics lesson, it would be more complex than, a lesson on photography, maybe. Then, of course, it depends. It's just an example. But for sure, there are some lessons that are more complex than others. In these, we cannot do anything. However, we can work on the extraneous load, so to optimize the germane load. Extraneous means that maybe I'm talking about astrophysics, something very complex, but I can make it a very simple lesson. Very often we say, this professor is very good because it made me love a very difficult topic. Could be. It's reducing the extraneous load that we can maximize the germane load. Germane load is a load that the brain of people need to sustain to memorize information while you're passing them. So if we make it easier for them to understand, it will be they will have more energy to memorize what we're saying. So our goal is to minimize the extraneous load, to maximize the germane load. Less is more. This is a mantra in the presentation design. I will never be tired enough to repeat it. And design is key. But design, guys, doesn't just embellish a slide. Design must work, must make the difference. Because if we do that, then people will remember. And you guys need to remember that comprehension doesn't mean memory. You know, sometimes we need to influence a decision-making process, and the process implies that you're not talking or influencing the decision maker, but maybe you're talking to somebody who reports to somebody who reports to the decision maker. So if you're not direct line, then your presentation must be memorized. And if we are aware that only 10% will go through the chain, well, then we need to be 100% clear about what is the 10% we want them to pass on. So sometimes we talk to receivers, and these receivers, they have to go to the stakeholders. So it's important for us that our receivers comprehend what we're saying so that they memorize what we're telling them, and they can then repeat the cycle and make our stakeholders to comprehend first and maybe memorize afterwards. So sometimes we need to go, persuasion goes through a multi-step decision process, and it's more complex, especially because our receivers are humans as we are, and therefore we know that our short-term memory is limited. This means that if we're giving information to people, people are receiving this information, and they store them immediately in their working memory. The working memory is short-term memory, but it's like a bucket with holes, and it's losing all the information. We can repeat, so repeating the message within a presentation is a good strategy, so we can reinforce what goes to the long-term memory, the big water tank at the end. But at the end of the day, we know that the working memory is a bottleneck that we need to overcome. And working memory is very limited, especially working memory works, it's based on two channels, the verbal channel and the visual channel. And we know that these two channels, they always have to be related. So that's why it is important to anticipate your next slides, always make the right match. I want to show people what I want them to memorize immediately when I need that. However, what happens is that through the verbal channel, you have two things that go. One is I'm talking to them, and the other one is when they read the slide. Well, the visual channel, they only see the slide. The problem is that if you, in the verbal channel, have a collision because you're talking to them and you make them read, both balls won't pass through the verbal channel, and so either they listen or they read. This is the scientific and cognitive reason why if you show them a slide like this, they won't understand. They will lose you because they need to read. So if I wanted to to use the same slide with the same amount of text and make it work, I wouldn't just tell you, okay, system engineering is the definition of an interdisciplinary approach that encompasses entire technical effort. This doesn't work. I would tell you, okay, guys, system engineering is an interdisciplinary approach that satisfies customer needs. Now, the moment I show you this slide, I make sure that you listen to it when I'm pronouncing the word needs, and so I know that you are going to match what I just said with the keywords highlighted, and the text is all there, but it's organized on a different reading layer. I can keep working on this, working on build-ups, and you see one slide tells a story, the other doesn't, because one slide is in perfect sync with me, and the design is helping me to attract attention where I need it to be. This makes me keep the attention high even if the slide is full of text. This might give us a chance to drive a decision, because with a presentation, if we want people to do something, we need to be able to tell them. And what do we tell them? How do we tell them? Well, the rule of 3 what makes a presentation effective in my opinion. What, so what, now what. So what you want in a situation like this, when you assess your presentation, you want your presentation to go through these what, and you need to keep in mind that the last what is what we call a call to action. In a storyline, we start strong with a hooking strategy. We go through our storytelling, problem solution dynamics. We do our data storytelling with the evidence, but we close with a call to action. Now, this is a tool that we call Lean Presentation Strategy Canvas. I'm gonna link it to you. There is a full guide in which I talk about it, but it's not going to be today. So I want to conclude this speech by thanking everybody who's been listening, guys. My name is Maurizio Lacava. I'm the author of these methodologies, Lean Presentation Design and Presenting Data. I am co-founder of a company that does design presentation for large corporates, and we help them creating these presentations that have an impact. We do develop the tools to make this happen. I created a software for PowerPoint that is available for you to test it if you want. It's available to test for free. We work for large corporates, and we have them designing great presentations to have an impact. From storytelling to design, we teach them how to do that. Plus, we have some courses once a year open to everybody who wants to learn, and we teach how to use our PowerPoint add-in. This is the MLC Presentation Design team. We all thank you very much for your attention, which we know is a scarce resource. We're gonna give you all the resources. Guys, stay in touch, connect with me, let me know you watched this speech and tell me how it went, if you liked it. This is a QR code for your resources. Guys, thank you very much once again for your attention. I wish you a great day. Make the best use of these tools. Make sure you're gonna make great presentations that drive attention and lead decision making. Be lean, tell a story. Ciao!